5 people who were found frozen in ice. Eva Wisniewska. Back in February 2007, 35-year-old paraglider Eva Wisniewska suddenly froze in the air while she was paragliding over Manila. Eva had been preparing for the World Paragliding Championships when a storm just sucked her into the clouds. She was instantly hit by rainfall along with orange-sized hailstones as the storm took her from roughly 2,500 feet to almost 32,000 feet. This was all in the span of 15 minutes, and she immediately passed out as temperatures plummeted to nearly -50 degrees Celsius, and she could not get enough oxygen. Somehow, Eva managed to regain consciousness almost 1 hour later but could not control her paraglider as her hands and gloves were frozen. She was flying at nearly 22,600 feet at the time and was once again sucked into the clouds, where the storm finally discharged her about 40 miles from her takeoff point. By the time she landed, Eva was covered in ice. She thankfully didn't suffer any permanent injuries except for some serious frostbite around her ears and only spent an hour in a hospital before she was discharged. Erika Nordby. In the early morning hours of 23rd of February 2001, a 1-year-old Erika Nordby strolled into the icy cold outside her home in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. She was only wearing a t-shirt and a diaper, which were definitely not enough to protect her from the temperature of -24 degrees Celsius. She soon froze in the snow until her mother, Layla, woke after 3 a.m., surprised that Erika had not been crying for food. Layla searched for Erika and soon found her frozen in the snow outside. Layla carefully wrapped Erika with blankets, afraid that she might actually break her daughter's frozen limbs if she wasn't careful. Paramedics and the police soon arrived and took Erika to the hospital. Doctors were just about to connect Erika to a heart and lung machine that would have extracted and warmed her blood before returning it back into her body when her heart started to beat again, and Erika then awoke 24 hours later. Mitsutaka Uchikoshi. On 7th October back in 2006, 35-year-old Mitsutaka Uchikoshi fell into a stream during a failed attempt at climbing Mount Iroko in Japan. He ended up breaking his pelvis to remain conscious before finally passing out. The next day he was rescued when another climber discovered his body almost 24 days after the incident. He remained unconscious the entire time that he was lost. While it appeared that Uchikoshi was not entirely frozen, his temperature had fallen to 22 degrees Celsius or 72 degrees Fahrenheit. He even suffered from blood loss and multiple organ failure. Doctors were absolutely fascinated with the incident and labeled it as the first recorded instance of a human hibernating. They observed his body shut down and slowly go into hibernation while temperatures on the mountain fell as low as 10 degrees Celsius. Miraculously, he did make a full recovery. Anna Bagan. In May of 1999, a 29-year-old radiologist had been skiing with 2 other colleagues in the mountains of Norway when she fell into a frozen stream. Anna's head was underwater while her legs were above and her colleagues tried pulling her out, but the water was frozen. She was slowly sinking into the water even though she struggled to free herself for almost 40 minutes until she stopped moving. Anna remained underwater for another 40 minutes until help finally arrived, at which point only her feet were just above the ice. Anna was completely frozen when she was rescued, she was not breathing, and her heart was not beating. Her temperature was at 13.7 degrees Celsius, which is unbelievably low. No human being had ever survived such an extremely low body temperature, which is when doctors immediately hooked her to a heart and lung machine. Her blood was pumped out of her body and warmed before it could be pumped back in again. This continued until her heart started to beat, and the next day she came out of a coma. Nearly 12 days after the incident, she suffered nerve damage, and it left her bedridden for 1 year, but she did eventually make an almost full Beckweathers. On 10th of May 1996, 49-year-old Beckweathers froze and nearly passed away during a failed attempt to climb Mount Everest. Before the climb, he had eye surgery to correct his nearsightedness, but little did he know that this would prove to be more problematic. The shape of his corneas began changing as he climbed higher altitudes, impairing his vision on the mountain. His guide, Rob Hall, discouraged Beck from climbing further and even advised him to wait until he returned from the summit. However, Hall never returned as he passed away the next day while trying to help another climber. Weathers then descended the mountain with other climbers until a severe snowstorm left them completely disoriented. Weathers lost his right glove, and his right hand instantly froze, and he soon suffered from both hypothermia and hypoxia. Some climbers found Weathers buried in the snow the next morning. His arm was still frozen, and his face had been covered in ice while he was in a hypothermic coma, which is usually the last stage a frozen person reaches before their last breath. But somehow, Weathers awoke from the coma and ultimately did survive, even though parts of his face, arms and legs had to be amputated.